May 22nd, 2023, Cascade City Council meeting. We'll have a call to order with a pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Kelchin.
Here.
Roush.
Here.
Hush.
Here.
Delaney. Oliphant. Here.
I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Kelchin,
Second.
second by Oliphant. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? At this point, we'll have public comment. There's a limit of 3 minutes per person on agenda items and local government issues. Hi.
We're here on our Taylor Street, excuse me. I got kind of the preliminary plans, what Lisa sent out, she's talking about doing, what she wants to do. Curb and gutter, I said, was total of an overkill, which we kind of ruled that out anyway, a little bit, didn't we? Curb and gutter.
Well, we think it would be better, but that's where we talked about having it,
Yeah.
some sort of an
So this is
assessment.
gonna run from our property line by the driveway to the end of our property line?
It's gonna be right, because the road is fairly stable from Third Avenue to almost your driveway, and then it deteriorates when it gets to your driveway.
Okay,
So the improvements would be there, stay pretty flat until you get past the barn, and then the east to west pitch of a 3 to 4% slope would be after the barn, so the water kind of then starts going to the west.
and that's still gonna run into ours, right?
Well, it's gonna go towards the water.
Towards the west.
Yeah, into our flat, which we get a pile of water down there already, so. Can you run water, city water into ours?
Well, we're trying to do a solution, so if
Yeah,
we're
okay, I
gonna
understand
spend
that.
twice as much to go to the end of the road and then get it into our old right-of-way, then, it's already a lot of money for one
Well, it's a lot of
property,
money you're
so.
spending that you wouldn't have to spend. $22,000 to put that, you're talking, what, 150 foot?
Well, you were the one that asked for us to do something to help your
I
road.
understand that, but there's a lot less expensive ways to do it than that. If you tip the street back level again and put a swale in it and run your water right down the chute of it,
You just do an inverted crown.
yeah, like a soil into it, like inversion, and run the water down through the center of it. You're not gonna have near the money stuck into it, you got stuck into it here.
Well, I think we still think that the sub-base is deteriorated enough that
There
you
probably-
can't just fix it, we have to put.
I don't know if there's a sub-base ever under that road,
So the point is, that's like the most expensive part of it is the rock.
but you're only fixing 150 foot of it. From there, it's gonna go right back into where we were. You're just diverting the water for $22,000. You're making the ditch from the west side, or the east side, to the west side.
So can I guess go back to the city engineer? That's why I reached out to you last week to try and get some input from you before. So I don't think we should just switch it here on the floor of the council. I think we'd have to go back and regroup with our city engineer.
So that'd be another 2 weeks. We've got contractors waiting. We're putting an addition on the garage, and I gotta know my garage driveway level coming out to the street, so.
That's why I asked to talk to you before the meeting, because now I don't have Jake to be able to reach out to and that's even talking to you before. I kind of have to work
There's
together.
just Gotta be a less expensive way to do it than this for the city. I mean, for what you're gonna get. That street probably doesn't get 55 cars a year on it.
We're not in favor of spending a lot of money, but we're trying to make sure that the money that we do spend is done correctly. So by no means is it ever proposed to spend that kind of money, but the road is deteriorated enough that we feel it's important to be able to build the sub-base back. And so we have to core it out to get whatever swampiness is in there, because we don't even know if there is a base at all. So that's where we're proposing the smaller and the breaker rock, so that we'd have that, depth to be able to support whatever improvements we're making.
I understand what you're trying to do.
So when you look at how it's broken down, because the Public Works crew would be doing the seal coating, that's literally, labor's obviously not in there, but that's only $2,500. So the vast majority of it, regardless of even how you pitch it is really in the rock and in the sub base. And
And what we're trying to get away from is the rock that washes down off the street into ours. And it's still down there from last September. That's never been taken out, so. That's what I'm just saying, it's just, what you're spending here is a waste of $22,000.
When they come out of there with the ag equipment, do you notice that they wheel track it because of the weight?
Look at the end of my driveway. That
That's,
was poured 2 weeks back, and they drove over the corner and busted the corner of it off, so. The whole street's getting bad all the way up the street.
you know, we met with Terry Gravel about this because obviously he has the contract that you just approved on Third Avenue to try and run it past someone who builds roads. And he felt like this was a good solution, so. If the council doesn't want to go with that recommendation, then I guess I would suggest that Phil and I go back to the drawing board with Jake, and if you want to come to that meeting, Rick, you can certainly make your pitch for that. I just don't know that putting a swale down the middle of a road, doesn't seem like the best idea to me, but I'm also not the engineer, so.
then you're collecting the water in the center and it's gonna run off to the side anyway.
When though?
Well, when the surfaced area stops.
If you look at it, it goes uphill from after the Brendan property line, you're just moving the problem down the block.
Farther.
Yeah, so.
And I would think that our position, like, if there's less of a road the further south that you go. Like, when you get past your property line next to the Garrett's property line, it's worse. So I don't think you can just, then you're gonna have to go twice as far. So, meaning, you know, where I can go to the map on here, but
We're just looking at the ditch that's there, because I mean, you drive down that street, it's terrible.
it's hard to see on this darkened copy, but kind of where my arrow is up there, you can see like everything past where we boxed it, where the word Taylor is, like if we're trying to get all the way down there, you still have to do all of this part of the street if your swale is in the middle, right, Phil?
I would think so, otherwise it's just gonna cut at the end.
Is there a catch basin down on the bottom, Phil?
Fourth Avenue, no. There's one at the top on Third,
Third,
not Fourth though.
there's a storm pipe that runs down through there. To the river down Fort, right, Rick?
Yeah, the property we own, yeah. We own that street.
That comes from up above, but there's a pipe right to the river on Fort.
But we don't connect to it on Taylor.
No,
There's no surface catch basin that takes it down to the pipe.
no, the one on Third goes to the river too.
The only reason I was asking, I didn't know if there was an easy way to put an intake, like by their driveway, to just stop the water, to catch it there, to
On
have
the
it not
west, or on
travel.
the east side?
On the, whichever side's
Their
lower.
house.
I guess I don't know if the east or the west side of that road's low, or,
If you look at the volume of water that comes down through there, it's gonna take a major catch basin to catch it. I mean, we're draining stuff from the elementary school, comes all the way down there.
It's the
Folks
problem
are
when
into
everything
that.
pitches to
That
someone's
does.
area.
Yeah.
well, I just thought of that. I didn't know if we could catch the water to eliminate it from washing it out. If you'd be better off doing some kind of storm project and just, it's not appropriate really, but grade the road. to
If they're
something
doing-
acceptable for now, and in the future, seal coat it or something, and get the sub base. If we'd be better to try to catch the water and not have it be above the ground the rest of the way down there.
I don't
So all
think you
the-
can just install that.
All the water from the elementary comes down there and it runs along that south curb on Third. So if they're tearing the street up to do water, you could put a catch basin in and then run that over to the other intake, couldn't you,
You'd
Phil?
be better off spending $22,000 in that intersection would be than just swale the street, because you're gonna catch the majority of the water there before it gets to us,
And then we're gonna leave your street the way it is?
as long as we clean the ditch up in it.
Okay.
You can never hold it, you can never hold it, you don't do something.
But if you got all the water that comes down from the elementary school and put a catch basin in ahead of your house as far west as you could, and then run that water into the catch basin across the street on Taylor?
If you look at that street, it's got a hump in the center of that intersection that diverts the water mostly to the left, some to the right. The water that comes down, it does not hit the intake at all. It hits behind the intake, down to the south of the intake. And then it has to swirl around there and then goes
And-
back to the intake, so.
Yeah.
That was something I thought about, if we could stop the water problem, we could
I
just,
don't think you'd have a big enough catch basin to catch at the intersection and stop things from going south, do you?
I don't know if you catch it all, I'll have to probably
No, you're not gonna catch it all, no.
You'd have to have one that's open throat, like 4 or 5 feet, and then have a street tip to it.
just like we did on Garfield,
Regular catch basin, over right by it.
like we did on Garfieldville.
Similar to open throat, I'm talking a big open throat.
Or like under the
Oh,
curb is open,
Under,
Yeah, it's
okay,
like 5 foot open.
yep.
Yeah.
not like a grate, you know, where you can just look under the curb and it's like,
But they're gonna have that whole street tore up for the water, right?
no, we're not going to the intersection for
Oh,
any
okay.
tearing up.
They're gonna have some of it tore up, not the whole street.
Reshaping.
They're gonna put the sewer main in, but there's already a new stick of pipe, I believe, going to the east.
To the
At
east.
that intersection,
Yeah.
so they'll probably be 20 feet from that intersection if they put a whole stick. I
Yep.
don't know.
But could you, even there, why would you have to catch it all the way at the corner? Why couldn't you catch it up, I don't know who lives, where Marty lives now. But why
Befo-
couldn't you catch it up in between?
You're saying the Third Avenue water, not the Taylor Street water?
Third Avenue, correct?
Yeah, that'd make a heck of a difference. Is catch it where they're gonna be tearing up, well, then you'd have to run a pipe down to the other catch basin.
Again, I didn't know until Cascade Lumber came to me, because the last that you told me, you were building a garage on the far south side because you were trying to enter at the alleyway.
But your setbacks, you said weren't gonna work.
Well, for you to have the full access of your driveway to the alley, correct? But that was where you said you wanted to be able to bring it out there, so then at the last week, when Mel sent me the plans,
Our first design, we were gonna put a 2-story setup there that you drive underneath and on top, and go out that alley on top. Well, we can't get our setbacks to work there neither. You got a 25-foot setback off of that street, so. We're running into the same problem with our addition on the garage. We have a 25-foot setback, so, which I understand, but if it was a legitimate street, curb and gutter street, I could see the 25-foot setback.
right, but you can't, we can't, I mean, the way Mel explained it to me was you want this, you would want to not comply with the setback so that you could have a service door there.
It's
To
just
have your
about
garage stick out
5
further.
foot closer to the street than the
Right.
house is.
Is that something we can entertain a variance for?
Yep, there's very strict laws about, like, you have to have a hardship. So to say I want to have a little, so it's like his house is like this, and then the plans that I got, like, it juts out so that when you were coming from the house, you'd be able to go into a little service door, and then you'd have 5 feet more of your garage. So there's no hardship to say, like, and the Board of Adjustments and Planning and Zoning are pretty strictly covered. Like, if you start just giving variances because it seems cool, like, not a big deal cool, or you say, well, because your road is not in good condition, we'll have a different set of rules, like, that's kind of where you get into lawsuits for the next time that you don't issue one. So you can still have your garage, you just have to not have a service door, or you have to go straight into your service door from the front of it, or come around on the south side. So that was, because I didn't understand. Like, Mel Stainer sent me a message, and I didn't understand the reason, but that's what he explained, was a little service door. So do you want us to, like, I'm not comfortable saying we're just gonna belly the road to the middle, or what storm is up there and what capacity it has, because it's not also about just sticking in drains in the road. You have to know that the pipe can handle it, and, you know, because all you're gonna do is then have a flooded intersection. If the pipe underground is so small that you have this ginormous opening to send all this water, and then it just fills up and can't get out, then now you have a flooded intersection, which,
So
You
how
know.
quickly can we get a hold of Jake to discuss this alternate idea?
well, I mean, we can talk to him tomorrow, I'm assuming. I don't think he's on vacation or anything. But the problem is no contractor is gonna, like, come in right now. So, like, everybody's busy. Remember when we just asked, like, them to do Third Avenue, and could you get it done by June 30th? And they wanted till July 15th. So we were trying to get something done before we start that road project, which isn't gonna start until the end of June.
But Rick, you don't need the road done to start
I
your
just need
project,
an
you just need to
elevation.
know the elevation, correct?
Well, but nothing about, I already have told you this numerous times, like, we're not adding fill to make the road higher. It isn't gonna be higher.
That's what the city told me when I built the shop up there, too. And all of a sudden, I'm 2 foot below the street.
I can tell
I know
you,
that's not you, but that's the same story I heard
right,
then, so.
but we sat in a room, we're the ones that sat with Terry Gravel and talked about it. And even to get the core of that, you know, you're taking the core out, like, you can't just lift the road up, because it's already flat, way up at the intersection, so you can't suddenly raise the elevation of the road without, now you're going all the way back to the intersection, and then what do you do at the intersection? Like, it's all, as you can imagine, like slope, that you can't just have a low road coming down and then go, let's get higher.
But if
It
you-
just has to
you
flow,
took
so.
And left the top part alone, flat, like it is now.
Yeah.
Water runs down grass both sides. The water doesn't have any speed built up to it when it gets to there. It's like it's down to the barn where it starts doing the drop off on the incline. If you went down there and swaled that out and seal coated it,
Do what?
it swale that out from like where our new driveway would be down to where, down the end of it. Swale that out and take care of that ditch out of there.
On the west side of the road?
Heading south.
But on the west side, you're not saying make a ditch on the east side,
No,
your side, you're saying the barn side.
yeah, barn side of it. And not a ditch, just swale it out and let it go back into the flat down below. Because then you're only speeding water up over seal coat for, and you can put diversions in seal coat. Water slow down diversions.
Yeah. Again, like, we can talk to Jake tomorrow, but even if we call the special council meeting on Wednesday, like, we still have to go out for prices, and if it's a Terry Gravel, because he's already there, like, he's not gonna do anything. So if your whole thing is about changing the pitch of the road, like, it's not gonna change it. And that's what I said to Mel. So he should be able to design your garage. And again, we thought you were going more to the south, which would have obviously made a more pitched driveway. But because you're going right next to it, he said your driveway should be pretty flat, so.
Should be, yeah.
So even in our plans, I mean, we can still take the, if you guys want us to go back and talk to Jake about whether it's storm or a swale in the middle,
'Cause I
it
was
should
thinking-
be where you meet your driveway is about the same elevation that
I'll be
it
taking
is.
36 foot of this project out with our driveway, so.
You what?
I'll be taking 36 foot of this project out of it with our driveway.
I don't know what you mean by
The
that.
driveway's gonna be that much bigger, and the next garage going back.
Wider.
How are you gonna get in it without a driveway?
Wider.
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 Oh, wider, yeah,
Yeah.
36 foot wider. I thought you said wide, excuse me.
No, wider.
Yeah. So now you're down to about, what would you have left there, Phil? 80, going, you wouldn't have 80, about 65, 70 foot.
Are you talking about curb and
South.
gutter or what?
Yeah, south, no, I'm not talking about curb and gutter.
So that's where I'm confused what you mean by, I get you're gonna have more driveway, because you're gonna have driveways in front of the two doors, but what, how's that related to what we're talking about?
You're taking from the edge of our driveway now down is your project. So if I take that 36 foot of our additional new driveway going in there, that's gonna be 36 foot off of that project that you're working with.
But we still have to
I'm gonna be
fix,
sloped like this, so I'm not gonna get water coming up the driveway, it's still gonna go down the street.
right?
That's what, if we swaled it out, you're only talking 50, 60 foot of swale out and you go down the street. You're not talking the whole street for the whole project.
We were talking about starting the construction wherever it starts to deteriorate, which I believe we thought was about where the existing driveway is, correct, Phil?
We were gonna start right in the, south side of your driveway.
Yeah, then I'm putting 36 foot of driveway additional onto that.
We still have to address the road there. That's what I don't
I'm
understand.
confused. You're saying you're putting a 36 foot wide
I mean,
driveway
like, you still have to
into your
start
driveway?
with
Plus
the
what
road.
we've got now, yeah.
The driveway
So-
doesn't change that. The driveway doesn't change that the road is deteriorated in front of it.
Oh, I know it's not, doesn't do that, but it's going to change the water coming out our drive. You don't, the ditch isn't gonna be there until you get out to the street. Our water will be coming out into the street like it does off our driveway.
So you're
now.
saying that we should do nothing in front of the new driveway? Just worry about it after the driveway?
Well, you're gonna seal coat that part anyway.
Well, we can't seal coat it unless we change the subbase. Correct, Phil? Like, we can't just go
That's what we-
seal coat it.
Yeah, that's what we come up with. We thought we gotta get base in there to get seal coat to hold.
Like, I don't think we can just seal coat, say, the first 36 feet where your driveway is and not change underneath the road, that we're just gonna seal coat whatever condition it is, because it's obviously not fabulous. I don't know. I think we probably just have to have another meeting with Jake, and, I mean, if we get something that makes sense to have a special meeting, we can certainly get you guys together, but all I'm saying is I don't think it's gonna change the construction, and I don't think any of this changes the height of the road, so. But we
No,
can-
we didn't plan on raising the low end any, we're gonna stay basically at that same elevation.
So you're just gonna move the water problem down onto Garrett's, basically.
Well, the intent was is not to do a full-blown street. The only right way to do it is curb and gutter and have it real, so the water runs in the
Curbs, right?
So we thought, obviously, we don't want to do that because it's not used that much. So we thought, once we got close to the end of the barn, or close to that area, we just pitched the street 3% to the west, to get that water to run in.
Back into our ground again.
Yeah, it ends up there anyway, doesn't it?
Well, it is now, that's what we're trying to get away from, because I got all the rock washed off it.
And then you'd have to put the street all the way to the
All
end,
the-
for the water not to go into that flat, won't you?
We'd have to take it all the way to the cornfield, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, just the curb and gutter alone, if you're gonna do it again, like we're talking, could be $30,000 in curb and gutter by the time it's all.
At the end of the project, where you're talking about now, is just move it down the street. You're not fixing anything, you're just moving it down the street.
Phil, how much would that change if you took care of the Third Avenue water, that it didn't run down that area?
Well, I'm sure if you caught it all, it'd be a huge difference.
That'd eliminate a lot of the washing problem irregardless of what you do
There's
streetwise.
still gonna be water running down there, obviously.
But it's gonna be a lot less.
Oh, it should be a lot less, yeah.
And that'd entail reshaping the intersection and running a intake, either reshaping the intersection to direct it towards the west intake coming down Taylor, or else put another intake in ahead of his house and catch it before it got,
Yeah, I don't think you
But
catch
it
it
has
all in that
nowhere.
intake that's there.
Isn't,
Bigger than that.
to handle it.
because isn't the pipe that goes between Holmes' house and his
Yeah.
land, it's more to the north of the intersection than the south,
Yeah.
isn't it?
And
So
it's
it's
not
not like-
overly sized.
I don't remember what size it was.
It's got a big box in it. It's got a big box in the bottom of it. It carries a lot of water. If the water could hit it, the water's hitting either behind it or ahead of it, it's not hitting at the pipe.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the solution, it's tough, and you're trying not to do a full-blown deal on,
Yeah.
what do you do? You're trying to make it work. You know,
I
a little
understand
amount.
And none of the, again, like, none of the Third Avenue project is doing anything in that intersection, so it's not like
It's
we
gonna
were
be tore
already
up
gonna be in
anyway.
there, and obviously if we were in there, we would have made storm improvements, but remember, like, that project with like no major road work, just a new water main and a couple service laterals for a sewer and a little patch of curb and gutter, like, that's $70,000. So it's just hard, like, it's a lot of money. And
I guess if we could just talk with Jake and see if we could try to catch the stormwater, that would eliminate our
Yeah, we will.
issue a lot easier than
Yep.
sticking money in a street project. I know we wouldn't necessarily get that street redone, but if we could regrade it, if we can catch most of the water and regrade that street the way it is, it's not ideal. It might serve us money ahead. I'd rather stick $22,000 in stormwater improvement than in
And get rid of the water.
get rid of the water. If
Yep.
that's causing us the problem anyways, if possible.
yeah, so we'll let you know what we hear from Jake. Is that okay? All right,
Took it in my 3 minutes left or not?
pretty sure you're over your limit.
You may be a little past.
You got extra time because we were on to the regular agenda.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Phil.
Phil. Where are we at? Consent agenda, minutes, city council 5/8/23, utility board 5/10/23, May 22nd, 2023 claims, Liquor license, 5-day corner tap room, 6/15 to 6/19. Annual renewal, JL Holdings Incorporated, doing business as Calvin's Supper Club. I need a motion on consent agenda.
I have a quick question. I noticed there's a pavement for the Cascade Sign West. Are those the ones outside of town?
Are you talking about Big River?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we found out, remember that the Economic Development Group is gonna pay for one and the Chamber's gonna pay for one. Well, the Chamber's tax exempt and the EDC is not. So that meant we were gonna pay $400 and they're also looking to help us pay for banners downtown. So I just decided we would be better off, since it's our sign anyway, that they bill it to us. And then we're gonna bill it to the EDC, so
Gotcha.
it's just because the EDC pays taxes.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we're gonna own the sign, so it's not wrong for us to pay for it, but if we paid for it, then we save $400 towards something else.
Makes sense. What's the time frame?
As soon as we cut the check, then it's designed, and then, the chamber already sent their half in, you have to pay the half down, so that's half of it. And then Kathy will send them the check tomorrow, and then they'll both be ordered. I don't know exactly how long it takes to make it, but I know it looks rather unpleasant coming from Monticello.
Yes.
Just a bit. Any other questions? If none, I need a motion on the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent
Motion by
agenda.
Roush,
Second?
second by Oliphant, all in favor?
Aye.
Open public hearing for fiscal year '23 budget amendment. I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to go out of public hearing.
Motion by
Or a
Roush,
Motion to go into public hearing.
Second.
second by Kelchin. Roll call.
Kelchin.
Aye.
Roush.
Aye.
Hush.
Aye.
Oliphant.
Aye.
We are in public hearing.
Is there anyone from the public that wants to? Or do you want me to just explain?
I think so.
All right. So you can see under the amended amounts column, this is on page 16 of our packet, sorry. This is the ad that went in the paper, and this would be how it would be amended if you go as approved. So the current amendment is the amount that's changing. A lot of the things that we went through are some different things that just didn't get put in. A couple of the grants that we've gotten so far were never put in. We didn't account for the spending on the Highway 136 engineering. Obviously, the gazebo was not planned. We still had a little bit of that first year, not understanding the set salary amounts for the pool. So like the pool, the library, and the parks are all under that cultural and recreational. Under general government, we explained that it was part, and also under culture and rec, it was all the park benches. So even though you have the revenue coming in for the donations, it's still an additional expense of $32,000. So those things kind of all make that up. In terms of public safety, we hadn't planned, like I said, the ARPA money. Also, we didn't budget for the new fire truck, so because we made that $28,000 down payment, an additional one for the pool was the stairs that we had to put a down payment on, and may have to pay for it this year yet, so tried to account for those. So again, even though we sort of round up to a higher amount because we don't know exactly what's going to happen in the next month, remember that the key is that anything that we amend it to by the end of May and notify the state then gives us the opportunity to reach that amount. If we don't, it's considered a chalk against us from the financial side. But by amending it doesn't mean that we're spending anything that isn't authorized already by the council. So my recommendation would be that we proceed with the amendments when we get into or out of the public hearing.
Any other questions? If none, I need a motion to close public hearing.
Make a motion to go out of public hearing back into regular session.
Motion by
Second.
Roush, second by Kelchin. Roll call.
Roush.
Aye.
Hush.
Aye.
Oliphant.
Aye.
Aye.
Kelchin.
Number 9, consideration of resolution number 45-23, allocating funds for Taylor Street Southeast repairs in the amount of $22,000.
So I don't know if you want to make a motion or just the direction that I had before is fine, that we'll come back after we
And
meet
a-
with Jake.
Yep.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Number 10, consideration of resolution number 43-23, adoption of fiscal year '23 budget amendment. Need a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt, or for resolution 4323, adoption of fiscal 23 budget.
Motion by Kelchin.
Second.
Second by Oliphant. Roll call.
Hush.
Aye.
Oliphant.
Aye.
Kelchen.
Aye.
Roush.
Aye.
Number 11, consideration of resolution number 44-23, hiring of All-Star Environmental for asbestos abatement work in the amount of $17,795.
So you'll remember that we had to have the asbestos inspection, which is required when a city is going to demolish any buildings. They did determine that all three buildings, the little garage that we have adjacent to our building, and then the two homes, had asbestos. So the bid is $17,795 for the three buildings, differentiating that $2,900 of that is for the garage. So if that's what we're going to proceed with, we obviously need to make sure that we all agree that we're taking that garage down. We wouldn't have to, but it's like the roof is caving in, and I think we're better to demolish it and then see if there's any solutions that we have on that lot later, because it's really not safe.
The asbestos abatement when we're closer to demolition, does that make any sense, or would
For
that?
which-
For the garage here? Or do,
Yeah, we could. So I gave them a deadline of July 15th for the houses, so that we have, I think I told you last time, we're gonna let the fire department like fill it with smoke and do some training. And then we wanna have everything down by like Hometown Days weekend. So my plan was to give the demo people like August 1st to the 15th. But I also gave I gave them till the September 15th to do the garage, because I didn't wanna pay more because all three had to be. So I could certainly work with Bruce, is the owner of this company, the All-Star, and see if we can wait till we get, the next thing I'll bring back is the actual demo bids. And so I can ask him. Yeah, because
Do you
the
have a
other
bid?
should be pretty close
A
together.
bid for demolition of the garage too?
No.
Not yet,
Not
but I
yet.
would, yeah.
Okay.
And then, yeah, that. So we can try to coordinate.
gotcha.
Just thinking about this, but like, do we want those demolished with more time before hometown days so that stuff has time to settle?
It takes a while to get it
So
in a
the-
good condition.
So
Yeah,
he's
that's
probably
easier.
going to be done by the end of June, but here was what I learned when I had a walkthrough with 5 companies. The law requires, not the law, but timing of school. So any school projects that get bid out for demo, and obviously that's really who we're competing with, is cities and schools, because regular buildings that are owned privately don't have to do this. So everything that schools are always required to have their work done in June, because they have to get ramped back up for the school year. So everybody basically said, like, we're gonna pay a ton more money if I had put a sooner date than July 15th. So when I waited until to see who got the bid, Bruce said that his goal is to have it done in June. So one thing is that after today, I'll let him know if you approve the bids. If you do, they have to apply to the DNR to be able to do this, and there's like a 2-week waiting period. So there's that. So then I think he can go like somewhere in the teens of June, or maybe the 10th-ish. And then he said it's probably a week to 10-day project. So hopefully it will be done sooner. And at the next council meeting will be my intent to get the demo prices. And then if we can, we'll just, yes, ramp everything up.
Okay.
And I don't really think that Hometown Days committee really wanted to like encroach in that area too much. They sort
They
of felt
wouldn't.
like it wasn't worth it other than the vacant lot.
And really, that vacant lot shouldn't be touched.
That won't
because
be
we're not
touched, so you can still.
Right.
They can
utilize
just
it.
My
make-
fear is that, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I know in the past they've always put the blow up, like, bounce houses and stuff
In the
there, so it
vacant
kind
lot.
of creates that barrier, but like, that's where all the kids go. And so I just really want it to be a safe area. for
We
the-
always had a fence there. They always had a fence running through there anyways to
Did they?
separate
Okay.
it.
I
Yeah,
just-
it'll
I
be
couldn't
fenced in
remember,
either
so-
way.
That was fenced from the alley to the
Okay.
Alley
sidewalk.
to,
As
It'll
long
be
as it's gonna be
fenced.
safe for, I mean, I've got a 4-year-old, so I'm very concerned about that.
Yeah, no, it won't, nothing will be open. It will all be filled before.
Okay.
It's not like demo with a basement hole. It'll be demo and filled.
and they're gonna fill it with sand, so virtually no compaction.
Yeah, we actually talked about, should we have like the sand volleyball over there, but they didn't want to do that.
Okay, thank you.
So I think it'll be good, but we'll, either way, it's fenced in, and we'll just make sure that, and it may be, if like, if it seems goofy,
Yep.
well, we can always just fence in around the actual vacated
And-
footprint too, you know,
Yep.
with like orange fencing.
I have the 4-year-old that would love to play in the sand,
I'm
so
sure.
that's my fear.
Yes. I gave birth to them, I know. They're just bigger. So anyway, if we're doing this, then we are committing to demoing the garage, and we can work on the
That's
timing, but
yeah.
this is like kind of our first, yes, we're committed to doing that, so. So then my recommendation would be to proceed with the resolution hiring All-Star Environmental
Yep.
for the amount of $17,795.
Need a motion?
I'll make a motion to that effect.
Motion by Oliphant,
Second.
second by Kelchin, roll call.
Oliphant.
Aye.
Calchin.
Aye.
Roush.
Aye.
Hush.
Number 12, consideration of ordinance number 05-23 EMS ambulance fees. This is the third and final reading.
If there's any questions, we still have not gotten any objections, so this would be the third reading, would then go to publication and be hopefully somewhere around June 1st, the ambulance calls would start having the higher amount.
If there's no other questions, I need a motion on ordinance 05-23.
I'll make a motion on ordinance 0523.
Motion by Kelchin,
Second.
second by Roush. Roll call.
Calchin.
Aye.
Roush.
Aye.
Oliphant.
Aye.
Number 13, consideration of ordinance number 06-23 vicious and dangerous animals, first of three readings.
So as you know, we had discussions about the breed situation being specifically listed. This was sent to our attorneys at Lynch Dallas, and you can see they basically eliminated paragraph 10, which would eliminate the bull terriers, American bully, pit bull, those specific dogs, and then focus strictly on the behavior. He changed a couple of code references to state code numbers that have changed. And then the last thing that he changed was, he basically said that as long as we're looking at this, that there are communities that have serious cat hoarder problems. And most cities that don't have any sort of restriction are the ones that kind of get into the most trouble where there's not a lot to address it. So you already had a 6-dog limit, but no cat limit. So he suggested 5 and 5. There's nobody that's licensing 6 dogs right now, so I don't think we're not creating an ordinance that now someone has to get rid of their dog. And we could say they were grandfathered till they didn't have 6, but nobody's licensing 6 dogs right now, so.
So-
It just prevents.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
One of the questions I had, so does that allow them to have 5 cats and 5 dogs?
If you want it that way, or you
I-
could say 5
Should
of
it be-
each in a total. It's up to you.
I-
But
Or a mixture of 5 such animals. So I think it reads,
I think you can have 10.
okay.
You think that, or you think the other way?
I think I read it as 5 pets, period.
I read it as having 10.
I read it as having 5 because it says,
I guess you're right.
or a mixture of 5
Combined
such animals.
total. Yeah, it is 5.
5 total.
Yeah.
Combined, okay. It
Yeah,
says.
the
farther
second
down,
part, I
Combined
think.
total of 5 dogs or 5 cats.
Yeah.
Or a mixture of 5 such animals over the age of 4
Mhm.
months.
I guess, does it matter if they're cleaning up after them?
Have you ever dealt with a cat hoarder problem?
I have not, no.
I've lived in, or the communities that I've managed, we literally had 50 cats in a house. And when people have that, I mean, and you kind of hear it on the news, like where the police get in and they rescue all these animals. Like, unfortunately, it's similar to people that have the disease that we would just consider like hoarders in their house. Like, they mean well in their hearts to try and take care of animals, but I myself cleaned a house when we actually had to have a lady removed from her house, and they, like, you can't manage 50 cats.
No, I agree. I just think saying 5 is, I don't know, I feel like that's kind of overstepping our jurisdiction a little bit. Like, I'd rather see it at 10 than 5.
You can have it whatever number, it's just advised to have a number.
Are you saying on the property or in the structures?
Well, it's habit. Well, I think it's either way. It's that you own them and they're at your property. It doesn't matter that they're in the house
I just
or
know in our
outside.
neighborhood, we have cats that roam the neighborhood, and they live in the storm sewers and, you know.
But they're not tagged, so nobody's gonna get in trouble for that.
Tagged.
I mean, they're not like tagged, like owned by a specific, they're not just
And there's a whole.
pretty feral.
That's why I'm asking whether it's, you're talking about structure or you're talking about property.
Well, if they're your 10 cats right now under this proposal that you're letting run around, number one, they can't be running around. So then you'd be in trouble for that, I guess. And then if they're yours, then yeah, they would still, it's, do you own them or not, I guess. Doesn't matter if they're in or out.
But how do you like just, like, that's where I think we're gonna get into trouble with this, is like, how do you quantify that? Cause like, if Bill's choosing to set food out for him to feed feral cats, he's doing a kindness.
So
They're
if
not
he does
necessarily
that.
his cats.
Yeah, well, then I think if you start putting out food for 20 cats that come to your house, then you're gonna start being in trouble, because then you're becoming a hoarder.
They feed a bunch over here too.
But like,
Right.
if cats are running free in a neighborhood, like that's like on us to capture them and
Take them away.
take them away. And if somebody wants to, then they need to come and get it or license
that's
or
how we'll know.
I'm
register.
with you on that, because I don't like because we've got cats out in Oak Hill.
Yep.
Bad deal. And they are actually people's cats, and they
But
let
they-
them outside, and then they're pooping in people's yards and on people's patio furniture, and that's a big issue where we're at.
So that's why you're not supposed, like, we have an at-large. So if you are doing that and you're letting them run the neighborhood, then you would be breaking another ordinance that Fred could cite you.
Having the animals run at large. And that is an issue that we had more when we had the trailer court. We had a gentleman down there that he probably had 50 or 60 cats in and out of his trailer. His litter box was his bathtub.
Oh, gross.
Yeah, and he had no running water. So, but yeah, if we have a neighborhood that does have a cat problem and they're ripping into garbage and stuff like that, we have live traps. We go out and catch them, and if we can rehab the cat, we've got farms that we can take them to. If they're extremely vicious, we end up putting them down.
So that's the
might
thing
get
is if-
hurt a bit.
That's what I mean, like, if you're not associating with it, then we can come and get it, and if you think it's yours, then I guess we're gonna know when we come and scoop it up.
So then if we add cats to this ordinance, do I have to register my cats?
I don't think there's a cat licensing.
It's not licensing.
So why do we have to register dogs and not cats?
Right, that's kind of where I'm
State
at.
law.
That's what, I feel like I'm opening a can of worms, I'm sorry.
I think state law requires us to fall under that for dogs. It's usually the
Is that
discretion of a community for
disease
cats.
thing, or what is it?
I think it's more of a, like, it started with the kennels, getting the dogs registered when
That-
the people down here in the south end, they had their kennel license here in town. They could
Mhm.
only keep so many here. They
Yeah.
had buying the property and their license transferred out there.
Right.
So I think that's kind of where it started with, more with dogs versus cats.
Right, and also, is, you know, like, you always see whatever cities regulate it, they'll say the 4-month rule. Because obviously then if you breed dogs and you have the puppies and you have a
Mhm.
large number, those don't count. So that's the purpose of the 4-month rule. 4 months of age. Yeah, we're not saying you have to license your cat. But a lot of cities do.
License their cats.
Do they?
Every place I've ever worked, they have licensed cats. And it's really just for, almost make more sense to license cats because they're the ones that tend to run around and could chomp people, and then you're looking like, do you have rabies vaccinations? Like, that's usually the reason. So, but this is not requiring licensing of them. It'd just be if we went there, had a complaint about cats in a neighborhood, we come to your house and you have 10 cats, then you're gonna not be in compliance with the code if you were to adopt this. But you can up it to a different number.
I just know in our neighborhood, there's cats coming and going all the time.
And no one
I don't know-
cares.
I don't know how you determine
Whose
whose cat they
ownership?
are.
You scoop it up and take it somewhere, just like you would a dog, someone will call if it's theirs.
Put it out on Facebook, that's what, I feel like we see that all the time. Like Rolling Hills puts it out.
Right. And if it's your cat, then you'll call and then we'll know.
I mean, if
that
it's an
yours.
issue, and, I mean, it's only gonna get worse because they breed and have litters, and
Right.
so I think we probably need to start biting that in the butt if these cats are just running rampant. You know
Like,
what I mean?
If it's really that bad in your neighborhood, does no one care? Because I've never heard. Have you gotten a complaint about it by Bill's house? Like, I've never.
They are chunky cats over here too. Like, they're beautiful, the ones I'm seeing when I pick
I
the
saw
kids
one
up
on
from
my
school.
camera one night.
We,
but only
like I
once.
said, the main issue we had was down to trailer
It was a
court
raccoon.
before they got rid of the trailer court. Once in a while, we'll get, we used to have, down on Monroe Street, there was a lady that she was feeding stray cats, and she'd walk out of her front door, and all of a sudden, here's Mama Possum and 12 little babies. And it's like, do you want to get rid of the possums? Yep, sure. Okay, stop feeding the stray cats, because they are attracted to cat food.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
But I'm
So-
saying, are people
and
complaining in your
raccoons-
neighborhood?
Raccoons will eat the
I don't
the
think so,
cat
they're
food
just-
also, and, yeah.
We have cats, they belong between different houses and wherever, and really nobody technically owns them. I mean, just normal cat.
I think they're considered feral.
Yeah, then they're just stray cats or feral cats.
Well,
We did have a lady
feral
that was,
typically means they're mean or they're.
well,
the
just
definitions
wild, that they
were-
don't have an owner. So, but we did have a lady, probably about 5 years ago, would go out and sit on her front porch, and when she would go to get out of her chair, her arms would be all red wherever she was touching the cushion.
Oh, from the, yeah.
She
Allergic to
had a
cats.
severe allergy to cats, so we put, I think, 2 live traps up there. We ended up catching 9 cats. Nobody ever claimed them. And she kind of lived on the edge of town, but nobody ever claimed them.
I mean, I've had complaints from people, like neighbors up in Oak Hill, because cats were pooping on patio furniture. And they were getting really.
And that's why I say, like, people think they can't keep their cats inside. A lot of people will say that, but you can.
And it's,
You're not
it's not
supposed to let them run.
raccoons.
No, it's not
Or
raccoons,
you
it's cats.
tie them up like you tie a dog up, you know what I
Right,
mean?
like they're not allowed to run at large.
We put ours on a leash when we take them outside.
Exactly.
And we screened in our back patio so that our cats could go outside.
Yeah, I actually worked in one of the communities that had a leash law for cats. They didn't have licensing, you didn't have to license your cat, but if your cat was outside, it had to be on a leash or a lead or something.
Would you like to have that?
I don't
As
feel
long
like
as we're in
that's
this
necessary.
chapter. So what are your thoughts on the numbers?
To me, I say keep it at 5 total.
Okay.
That's, I guess, my personal opinion. But then the other question I had is, I know there's people with rabbits that like have pet rabbits.
I've
And
never
then-
seen those get regulated.
And then people have like
Guinea pigs.
birds as well, or like pigeons or something like that. Like, do we need to encompass all of that in an ordinance?
They said not. I told them what you guys wanted, like, were you concerned about any other animals? And they said no.
I think 5 is too small, is too low of a number.
Close to that.
What?
Because you're getting close to that. No. Then you just have to fit, it's just whatever you think collectively. You can have whatever number the council wants. You just have to agree on how you want to word it. And then whatever you decide, I'll change it if you want, if the majority of you agree that you want to change it. And your bill, since,
I'm fine with 5. But, I mean, I understand if cats might be different. I couldn't imagine having 5 dogs.
But like if you have 4 cats and a dog, you're at 5 already.
You're good.
You can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what if you're not? What if you don't have kids and you
Oh,
want to
no,
have a
I'm just
dog?
saying, no, I thought you were saying that you thought you were illegal then, no.
No, you're good there, but like what if you want another dog? You can't then?
if you adopt it like this, yes, you can't then.
No. That's why I feel like it's,
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could do, I don't know.
That'd be a lot of poop.
You could do,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess you could do a max of one kind or a max of the other, and then,
I just
Just
think, it-
up
what
the
if we
number.
just did like 10 pets, period?
That covers,
That covers, it. You could have 6 dogs and 4 cats, or you could have however, whatever denomination of, to get to 10. But that's, 10's our limit.
it does seem like a lot.
But do
I
we want
understand.
somebody with 10 dogs? Do you know what I mean?
I
I assure
still,
you that if there was
Like,
10
I'm not-
dogs in
like,
someone's
5 to me
neighborhood,
is-
It wouldn't
like,
take
you will
long.
hear about it.
I mean, I just know there was one that lived down on Macoka Drive, that there was 3, and that was Hoofda.
I believe that
Plenty.
I've
Yep.
yes,
I-
I've heard about those.
If we wanted to read it like Riley originally read it, I would maybe be a little more okay with that.
Well,
10
he
to-
said
10 total, 5 and 5, max.
So not 10 cats and
Not 10
dogs.
cats and not 10 dogs.
I'd be on
I'd
board
be
with
fine with
that,
that. I'd
5
be
and
fine with
5.
that.
So if you have only dogs, you're only getting 5. If you have only cats, you're only getting 5. But if you really want to have 5 of each, you can have 10.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I'm good with that, if it's okay with everybody else.
It's up to you guys,
Seems a little.
not just me.
If we need a compromise, it's one we're compromise, but 10 pets seems, I couldn't imagine that with,
is that
Yeah, but
agreeable
you
to
have 2
everybody?
kids.
I know.
I just
Have
think the
one.
thing, like, if you,
He already has 2 kids, like, that's a lot. And you add, I couldn't imagine 10 animals either with 3 kids, but if I don't have kids,
but I don't have kids and I couldn't imagine.
I think
five.
the key is, just like any regulation, you're blending what's the impact to a neighborhood when you have that. And so like if 10 cats are inside, like cats don't have to go outside, right? But then they become like, then they're pooping inside and then it becomes like people don't control it. But if you thought about 10 dogs, like seriously, if you put 10 dogs outside, like
That's pretty busy.
you have to think about like who lives on each side of that person and what's the ramifications of, that's like a kennel
Yeah, I mean,
license.
I would not go for what Megan said. I was trying to compromise. I mean, 10.
I'm with your compromise. I agree with what you're saying. I think 10 dogs is wildly excessive. I think 10 cats is wildly excessive. But I think 5 and 5 is fair.
So is anyone disagreeing with 5 and 5, 10 total? No more than 5 of either. So then I'll email him back. Bill, what do you think?
I'm not sure, I just, again, I don't know if you're talking inside the structure, outside the structure.
It's your ownership. You can't own them. So if you claim a cat, it's yours. But if it's running around the neighborhood, just because it runs past your front door, like, he's gonna come and get it if it's not yours. So it's not gonna be because it was in your yard, but we're gonna be able to come and get it if it's nobody's.
So
Do you think that's how I would?
Sorry, not trying to be nitpicky, but like, what happens if me and Haley weren't married? We both had.
It's per household, it's
So
not
it's-
per person. No, it's per house, per property.
Okay.
But again, like Bill's concerned, if there's animals running through the neighborhood, we can come and get them if they're truly stray. So if you all of a sudden had your 5, and then 2 were hanging around, so now you're at 7 and you're illegal, then we're gonna say, well, which 2 aren't yours, and we're gonna take them.
'Cause there's-
You're not gonna be blamed for them if they're not really yours.
There's a slug of cats over here, but they're not at a residence, and they're fed, but they're not,
But see, then I think if you're feeding them, then you're sort of claiming them as yours. Because if there were 7, Fred, at someone's house, and we're supposed to be at 5 under this new ordinance, and we say you're in trouble, you have 7, not 5, then we're gonna say, well, which 2 are yours? Not yours, and we're gonna take them away. And if you wanna claim 5, even if they're not yours, if you're feeding 7, and you're encouraging 7 to be there, then 7 are yours. Right?
I would agree with that.
I mean, just thinking like how we enforce it if it becomes
Yeah, I
an
mean,
issue.
if somebody puts food out and the occasional neighborhood cat comes and gets it,
It's fine.
yeah, because I'm gonna use Bill for an example. Let's say Bill puts food out, and one of the other neighbors puts food out, and it's the same cat going to
Mhm.
Bill's house, the other neighbor's house.
it makes the circuit.
Who owns the cat then?
Right, but if they
But-
each had 5,
Yeah.
and then that became 11,
Yeah. So,
then someone's getting the
yeah.
evicted.
Bill and Steve could both be feeding the same cat.
I just know in our neighborhood,
Feeding the same cat.
I know that a person down the way has 3, and I know those cats come over and eat at our place as well, you know, where.
But do you have cats then?
Patrice talked to him, and she had actually had everything, or the few that are outside ours, taken care of.
Spade,
And
or,
spayed, whatever,
yeah.
taken care of. And she asked the neighbor, you know, if she wanted, she was going down to Cedar Rapids to get them done and whatever, and she asked the neighbor if she'd want, you know, to take care of their cats too, and she said, no, we would like to have kittens and whatever, so I mean, it's just kind of a community type thing. I know there's 2 or 3 different people that kind of alternate, the cats come over, the kids come over, play with the cats, and the same kids go home,
You meant
and
the kids alternate between the houses? Like, what?
well, no, I mean,
They
they're
do.
over there, whatever. and-
Playing, yes,
and
but,
I come home and then one cat comes running over as soon as you know, it's a neighbor's cat.
It's the neighbor's
How do you-
cat.
how do
Well,
you
if it's the-
determine-
'cause
I
then
mean,
the-
it's just a community type thing. I know a person up the street, you know, probably does the same thing and whatever, so it's just, I just find it, I find it all right. I mean, really not bothering anybody.
Me
I
as
just don't quite understand.
not a
I
cat
mean, it's not-
person.
I'm not either.
I would lose my cool if I had cats. Usually if there's a cat running in our neighborhood, my dog goes out and barks at it and keeps it out of my yard so it doesn't poop in my lawn.
Well, and like, what happens if the cat scratches somebody? Like, who's liable for that? Do you know what I mean?
that's the point, we're gonna get rid of it, because nobody's claiming. Because it really is considered a stray that no one's claiming, so it's not anybody's.
Well, and what right does, like, as property owners, if we've got cats coming over to they're in our yard and pooping in our garden or whatever, can Fred shoot it?
No,
Not
but
with
he
a
can
real
take it
gun, but like
away.
with he's got like a salt gun that he uses for flies. It's just like table salt you load it with.
It's
You
a
shoot-
what?
It's a salt gun.
Who
You
has
sound like you're
this?
saying assault. You're saying salt.
I know, it sounds like assault gun.
Not assault,
A
salt.
salt gun, S-A-L-T gun, and it's just table salt, and you shoot flies with it.
In-house?
Yes, in the house. And
Call me someday, I want to see this.
It's like, yeah. And so, it's funny, I got it for Father's Day, and so, but like, could he shoot the cat with the salt?
Technically, you're not supposed to
Supposed to
shoot
have
it
any
outside.
projectiles.
We actually had an issue this afternoon where, down from the school, somebody thought there was a person holding a handgun shooting outside their house. So Brad went down, I was still on, we both went down there. The guy was shooting, it was a small BB gun, he was shooting at birds that are attacking other birds at his bird feeder. And it's like, yeah, you can't shoot that outside.
No projectiles.
So, yeah.
That's city living.
Yep.
So, I was gonna say something. Yeah, and again, like this is where maybe everybody agrees in a certain neighborhood, but when one house sells and the next person comes and they're not okay with it,
Oh,
like then it's a stray and you can't let animals run around. Like I don't really want cats in my yard either.
And
So-
we have had issues where tomcats will mark their territory, strays.
mhm.
And, yeah, I walked up to the one guy's house the one day with 2 live traps, and you couldn't hardly stand the smell outside his house. It was bad.
From the
So,
pee.
and I think we end up taking 7 or 8 cats away from that area. Yeah. we've-
So technically, it's not legal to have them just roaming, because, you know,
I mean, if
it's
it's
at
a stray,
large.
it's a stray. If it's a wild cat, it's a wild cat. There's no
Right.
ownership or anything, but, yeah, I mean, if you feed it and then you take it into your house and it stays there overnight, yeah, it's probably not a stray anymore. It's probably your cat. So,
So are we agreeing, the majority of you say the compromise that we're calling it, the total of 10, no more than 5 of either type? So I'll have it reworded that way. So you can still adopt the first reading if you'd like under that amended version, and then I'll get the paperwork to match that for the second reading.
If there's no other questions, I need a motion on ordinance number 06-23.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 06-23.
Motion by
with
Roush.
the amendments.
Second.
Oh,
Second by Kelchin, roll call.
Roush,
Aye.
Hush,
Nay.
Oliphant,
Aye.
Ketch.
Aye.
Number 14, discussion on recodification process and ordinance updates.
So I spoke with our attorneys and then got a little bit more information from ECIA where we had talked about the concern with maybe sort of that swoop of a ordinance adoption. And basically he said, like, we have to live with the ordinances that we have. So we either have to just amend them as we find things, or we really have to try and like tackle a couple chapters at every meeting. So we can kind of do a combination of that. Obviously, you know, I already bring you things when I see stuff, but if we want to be a little bit more aggressive about it. So the other thing that I had confirmed with them was that in the olden days of not having online versions like we've adopted through American Legal, we have the ability, as you know, like every time we adopt an ordinance, it's going to go online immediately. So that really replaces, but I confirmed that with the attorneys, that replaces doing some complete recodification every 5 years. As long as we're directing them to, we publish it, and then we send it to them, and they put it online immediately, there isn't going to be this every 5-year action. So hopefully we, you know, are keeping up to date, and there isn't this kind of monumental task every 5 years of taking ordinances. And I just think it's, you know, for me as a new person, for police officers, for citizens who want to look for things, it's just so much more convenient to be able to have that. So I think it's just really a matter of, you know, maybe, you know, once we get the library bid out and get some of the bigger projects continuing on, then we can maybe take a couple chapters that draw more attention and make sure that they're where we need to be, and maybe send it out to the council a week in advance, kind of look through it and see if there's anything. And obviously do the same with staff.
I think it makes sense. And I mean, even during the winter when we were talking about snow emergencies, we were noticing that there's just discrepancies across the board. I think.
Correct. Like that'll be one we should address before winter.
I think it makes sense. At least just to get another set of eyes on everything,
Yep.
just to make sure we agree with everything.
Okay. That was just an update.
Any other questions? No? Number 15, discussion on upcoming fall 2023 election deadlines.
So just making sure everybody that's up for reelection, which I think Andy and Bill, you're the two, and the mayor, just making sure you have the dates for when you circulate your petitions, things like that. Or obviously anybody else that's interested. I think the county takes care of all the advertising, and then Kathy will work with them on our specific city elections. So just giving you the dates. If anybody is interested that's not part of this group, you can see the dates online in the packet, so.
Gotcha. Number 16, discussion on R2, R3, R4 zoning districts and condo-style developments.
So I don't know who got a chance to read this or if you can understand the dilemma, but it kind of started with a question. There's no current condos on R3 properties. We have very few R3 properties. So R2 is like a smaller density, R4 is the biggest density, and then R3 was what we called multifamily and mobile homes. And so there was a question that came before me by a developer who owns R3, has had apartments in the past just adjacent to that, and wanted to do condo style similar to what we're doing on an Oak Hill, where we would have like a threeplex space and then another threeplex. So as you know, our practice has been with the developers that we've had so far, where they build them in sets of 2 or 3 and then end up selling them off, and they parcel them at the time. So somewhere back in 2021, for those of you here, you'll remember that in R3, there was none of these 0 setback accommodations like you can have then, which would allow you to have the shared wall. And so in 2021, you adopted adding that to R3. You currently had it before that ordinance in R2 and R4. What failed to be done when you did that ordinance is that you allowed them, but you didn't say what the setbacks had to be. So when the person comes to me and says, hey, I'm ready to build on an R3, what are my setbacks? I'm like, well, if you look at the setbacks in 2 and 4, they're exactly the same. But I can't like really rightfully issue you a building permit. You know, the assumption is we'll probably go through the same process, amend the zoning code through planning and zoning and council, and that it'll make sense to do the same setbacks, which I listed in here. But then that led me to the square footage of the lot. Just because when you're looking at the chart, when you look at the code, and you see the little chart that has like, what is it zoned, what's this called, and then it has setbacks, and then it has total square footage. So when you looked at R2, which is supposed to be bigger lots, less density, it had a 6,000 square foot minimum size, which you got from having 60 feet of frontage and 100-foot deep lots. So the 60 times 100 gets you the 6,000. And then remember, that's missing in R3, even though you allow it. And then when you get to R4, it had 5,000 square feet. So it said 50 feet of frontage and 100 deep. So all the condos that have been built, I'm like, oh, let's see what we've done in the past. So we look at the ones that we've already built, they're all in R2. There's nothing built in R4. And so as I started looking at that and looking at the dimensions of the frontage, everything that's in R2 should be 60. So I picked northwest corner, and we have like the 2 buildings, and they're all divided at 50 when it should be 60. And then when we go over to Oak Hill, they're the same thing, like you have these triplexes, and there's one that are, in the case of the ones that were built a couple years ago, I don't know how many a couple is, but the ones that, not the ones that are, if you look at the dimensions I showed you, there's a 60 and then a 50 something and like 240s. So the other thing, so that led me to, I wanted to make sure that I was interpreting that correctly, that really what we've been doing is we approve a lot when you do the plat of 100 feet, like in the northwest one. So we have a 100-foot lot, so that's legal, because it should be 60, right? But if your intention is to split it and become 2 separate parcels with 2 separate owners, they're still supposed to be 60, even when you split it. So if we follow the true letter of the law right now, the 100-foot lot needs to be 120, with the middle line being right at the middle, so that when you split it, it would be 60s. So that's not been happening. So I think they're legal when they're platted, and then as they sell, they must, and then I'm guessing it never came before anybody, because if you're only splitting a parcel from 1 to 2, it can be signed off by the zoning administrator. If it's 1 to anything more than 2, 3 or more, then it comes before everybody. So if it was just one parcel split because it's ready to sell one, it just probably got ran through the paperwork and not caught. So I confirmed with the attorneys that I am correct, that that is we are not wording it in a way that makes that 100-foot be able to become 50s, or these like two somethings to be 60, 40, 40, 50, whatever that is. So he is comfortable figuring out a way to word that if your intent is, either we have to go with what I said, which is they're 120, but then what he was saying is because of the way it's going, like you're basically dictating building size instead of lot size, because by having a 0, if you had the threeplex in the middle, you're like forcing a 60-foot wide building, whereas like most condos are not 60 feet wide. But so he also said that because we have the threeplexes, the way we word it is your exterior have to be 8 feet lot lines. Remember when we did the ones, we did like, it had to be 16 in the middle, if you remember, so you could have an 8 attached to one threeplex and another 8, and then, so it says the exterior lots have to be 8, and the interior lots can be 0, but we don't say anything about one that would be in the middle of a threeplex that doesn't have any exteriors. We don't really word that properly. So I sent everything to Steve, at one of the attorneys at Lynch Dallas, who kind of does a lot of the zoning stuff with us. And he looked at all of this and he's like, well, we're really not addressing when you have a true interior surrounded by both sides. So if we want to be able to still allow that, he needs to get us some wording. And then if you want to have a different rule, if it's split, to not mandate the size of the building, he needs to kind of figure out how you want that worded. So I told him my gut feeling is I feel like you probably think it's working fine right now, and that you're not trying to, make some sharp turn and be different. But we're definitely not complying with the true spirit of what it says. So I wanted to make sure we had input here where I'm not just going in a direction, taking it to P and Z, and then having you guys say, well, we should do this. So kind of just looking for some input.
Yeah, I would agree with what you said. The way we're going is, I guess, what we thought was right, and I don't think it's wrong. I just think we need to get it worded properly for what we've been doing.
Do you foresee any issues? Like, if we keep going that route, like, do you foresee any issues?
I think it's just like, because when you think about like the lot size, when you have the threeplexes right now, like clearly the ends are bigger, right? Because they have the 8 foot. So you're still like, you're not bothering anybody, like you're not encroaching on anybody's land, because obviously if you buy a threeplex and you buy the one in the middle, like you get it that there's people on both sides of you. But we have to be able to say that one, I think what he would say is that the interior one of a threeplex can be smaller, a smaller width if it's truly an interior. Like we allow there to be 3 so that one's packaged with no exterior sides, and that it can be smaller. Because otherwise, he said he's not comfortable with us saying like, these have to be 60-foot lots, but then because one's sandwiched in the middle, that one has to be a 60-foot house, not a 60-foot lot. So you're basically saying like, say you had, 60, 60, and let's say 40. So we had 160 feet of a lot, that 60 would be here, 60 would be there, and then you'd be allowing 40 in the middle, which isn't a bad size condo. That's about what they're building them at. But you're acknowledging that when it's sandwiched and 0 exteriors, that you allow that and that's smaller.
And I think that that's a nice thing, because it gives an option for a smaller, like if you can't afford the bigger one, you can
take
get
the
the
smaller,
smaller
yeah.
one, it's more affordable.
Right, and
So
that
I
one
think
might be
we want
cheaper,
that option
right,
for
because they don't
people.
have land. Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And you think about like some young newlywed couple, or even somebody that doesn't want to have to maintain, somebody that's retiring doesn't want to have to maintain a lot of land.
Yep.
That would be perfect for them. So I definitely think I think that's a great idea.
Right. I'll just quickly explain like what happens in a true condo world, which I confirmed with our biggest developers that we are not in practice here. What happens in the truest form of a condo is that you have one parcel, and then people are deeded ownership to a portion of that. So say you had the fourplex, like a fourplex on there. You would own your footprint of the inside of your building, and you own 25% of the ownership of everything exterior. So when you think about a true condo association, like maybe people snowbird and they have that where you pay your condo dues. And then when the roof needs to be fixed, it's everybody's roof. And it's everybody's parking lot, and it's everybody's grass. So you genuinely own 25% of all the communal areas, which is your box on the outside and everything to do with it. And then you own the inside, so you don't have to fix the roof, paint the outside, or redo your driveway. It's all done together, and then you pay dues. That's a legal way of doing like the truest form of condos. So we're kind of doing more like a townhome where there isn't HOAs, at least according to the developers that we have right now. So that's kind of the flip side of where sometimes these ordinances might look the same, but it's not intended to be a true split of genuine, you own 100% here and I own 100% here. It's, we would own this part and we would split this. So that's where I think things are probably worded in a certain way that then in practice, again, it doesn't get to where the law jives with what we're doing. So we're in agreement that your direction would prefer to be, keep going the way we're going and get it worded the way it needs to be.
Correct.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Before the reports, I'd like to thank all the all the people that put Wingfest on for a really nice event. And also congratulate Cascade Lumber on 70 years. They did a great get-together for everybody. We'll be waiting for 80, I think. Reports, Fred?
Couple of things. One thing that I've noticed, of course, it's been kind of an odd year. We've had some really phenomenal grass growth this year. So just kind of want to remind everybody, I know we've knocked on a few doors already just to remind people that they do have to keep their grass cut. And then also just to kind of remind them that when you are blowing those grass clippings, if they do happen to get out in the road, if there's a large amount of them, take a blower or a broom, kind of sweep them back in, get them off the curb and gutter, because all that stuff goes down into the sanitary sewer system, and the guys have a fit with it down there. So just a couple little reminder things that, for the grass clippings. One thing about that I did want to bring up, this is kind of a current issue, and I had mentioned something to Riley earlier because I just happened to run into him. Friday I was driving the newer squad car around and did kind of a short turn, had some vibration in the car, got out, thought maybe there was an issue with the tires, did it backwards, noticed it Saturday, went up to Herb Green this morning and took one of the mechanics out for a little ride. They went in, typed our VIN number in. There is a recall on the differentials in the back. So Wednesday I'm taking it up. They're going to take the differential out. Everything's under warranty, so we won't have to, everything is covered, which is good. They're going to take the differential out, and they've got a part coming. The good news is I'm going to be on vacation while they're working on it, so we'll still have one car to use. But, and Brad and I won't even have to share a car, because they think if they get the part, given Memorial Day, they should have it fixed by the middle of next week, so. But in case you see the car up there or don't see the new car roaming around, that's what's going on with it, so. Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
questions for me?
I do. I thought of one other thing. I noticed on Main Street, there was one house that had like a bush on the corner and it got trimmed out, like the like vision triangle or whatever it's called.
Okay, yep.
Do you mind just when you guys are out and about, just start documenting some of that?
Yeah, I know we've got another one over by the park too. I've got to get a hold of the gentleman, because if you pull up there and you want to turn and go past the park, you really can't see to the right, so. But, yeah.
Yeah, if you can do that, it'd be appreciated.
We knock on doors a lot, and people are pretty good about taking care of that. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fed.
Enjoy your vacation.
Thanks.
Library Design Committee.
I don't think we have anything new.
New.
We are 3 weeks between our meetings, so our next meeting is June 2nd. So we're obviously progressing. We did have, for those of you that were at the meeting, kind of working on exactly where every outlet and plug should be. So we had Councilmember Delaney come and meet with Melissa and I to kind of go over that, and then we agreed that it made sense to have the electric consultants come to a meeting, kind of sidebar, the same day that they'll be coming on June 2nd, but we're going to meet with Mike and just kind of make sure that we're on the same page. So we're doing that. And then the other thing that I'm going to bring forward is the garage at Iserman. Oh, we do close on the house on Thursday. So I'll be going up to their new place to sign all the paperwork. And then the garage is all in good tact, and we've had someone interested in moving it, and I said we can't just sell it to the person who comes forward. So I am going to put out a document letting people have a week or so if they would like to, and that they'd have to get it moved by a certain date. And then obviously that has to get approved by the council. So just in case you see that ad out there, that's what that's for.
That's good.
So we're doing that.
Question on those houses, are there still like appliances and stuff in there too? Or did all that get taken?
Well, yeah, no,
Or appliance worth something, no?
no.
It's clean.
There's a few like things that were left at one or like thrown in the garage, the one that has drywall asbestos, so that you don't contaminate everything else with asbestos, so that is it on the bills tonight? There's a $240 payment to some nice people who came and helped us move all that stuff into the garage, instead of paying a higher price for the asbestos. And then, yeah, no. Utilities are shut off to the east house, and then we have to leave electric and water on to the west, because they need that on site for when they do their asbestos removal, so that'll be there. We had the garden club come and take some perennials to put around other properties, so we're trying to do, the stumps will go and the houses go. So, yeah.
Anything else
Not for the library. For me,
for you?
yes. So a couple things. We have a couple alleys that have issues. Like, I know you guys had originally talked about trying to wipe all alleys out of garbage and recycling, which didn't go over well, but we're trying to sort of selectively find ones that have issues and then address them. So the one, if you know the alley that goes a bit to the west and curves to the south over by the funeral home, that curve there is a problem that they hit, is it Mr. Fisher maybe?
Yeah.
So that is a problem, and we're having Republic come back and fix it. But the reality of that end of the alley is it's private land. And everybody has terrain where they can take their toters to the front. It's not like a treacherous, mountainous front yard where they can't. So we really shouldn't be having a garbage and recycling truck going through private property just to be able to go to an alley. So I was letting you know that I intend this week to send a letter out to, it's like 7 houses. I think it's Hayes and Garfield, like 4 or 3, whichever. And then we're gonna have them all come to the front. We're not gonna be going through an alley that they have to like legally come in from one and back up, or cut through private property where it's not easy to go on that curve anyway. So in case you hear about it, that's going out. And we do have one other one that I'm gonna be looking at that may be treacherous terrain, but there's been the same, like kind of how they cut the corners. And if you remember, we sort of experimented on the one up here on the southwest side, had the neighbors all talk about it. They all pull them out to the road and everything's okay. So I think we're just kind of case by casing it. So there's that. I think I sent them to everybody, but I sent two DRA grants in on Friday. One's for the library. The other one, to make sure you knew, was that, we obviously have a struggle with the ambulance service attracting EMTs. And I think we're getting close to crisis mode, that we really need to have a plan of, ideally, we want to have a public service, not a privately run service. And so we need to be able to bring the people together. And so I applied for a DRA grant to pay for, it's around $20,000 to bring a consultant in, have them look at everything, be able to tell us how our runs are, how we're handling things at River Bend, at Acura, places like that. So we'll see. I think we'll find out in July about that. On Thursday, before the closing, I'll also be going to the county. Remember, I'm going to ask for money to help us with Highway 136. So that's on Thursday. Originally, they thought that it would be $100,000 that they could afford, but on the agenda, it's $120,000. So that's my hope, to walk out of there with approval for that. So we're doing that. I don't know who knew this back then, but when we built the well that's over by the new water tower, so that's Well House 6 going up to the Oak Hill subdivision, you're supposed to have 100 feet around that center point where the building is. That's considered what you call a wellhead protection. So you're making sure that people aren't putting fertilizer and things like that. So when you look at if you ever go on Beacon, the land that's owned by the CDC, which is to the west before you go up the hill, that has an actual restriction that you can see that says like no chemicals. But we don't own, you really, in the most ideal world, you should own the 100 feet so that you control the land that's around there. And obviously the point of this is that you're not poisoning your water system where you're taking the well out. So normally, if it's a shallow well, it's 200 feet. Thankfully, ours is a deep well, so it's only 100 feet. So I've been in some communications with the CDC about us purchasing 30 more feet of land or getting it. Not clear. I need to do some research as to whether we bought the land originally or the CDC did, but we need 30 feet to the west. And then I had a conversation today with Mike Beck, as he owns the land to the east. And if you were to ever create lots right there, the backyards would be not allowed to have like any kind of Mike Gale come and spray your lawn. You can't use Roundup. So we really need to Mike and I are gonna talk about that, but I brought that up to him because somehow it's not restricted on his land. And then, so, there's that. Then we also talked about, I'm
So,
gonna,
Back to that,
Yeah.
we've discussed all this at some point since
yeah,
I've
it
been
never
on.
got done, I think.
Gotcha.
Because if you take it, like, first of all, the building's more to the east of the actual lot lines. So that's why we only need like 30 feet over here and we need 70 feet. Like, we're 30 feet from the lot line.
Gotcha.
So, you know, Mike kind of rethinking gave him some time to think about it and come up with a plan. But ideally, it's under your control. If not, you have to have restrictions on it. And I sent Mike and Julie the ordinance so that they can read how the wellhead protection works. So that's an issue to come up. I think I also told you as a part of the budget that a dog park is the main priority. You know, we gave $50,000 to the park board for projects for next year, and that their number one priority is dog parks. A dog park. So there's a county grant that's due on Tuesday of next week that I'm going to apply for. The max you can get is $10,000, but that would go, you know, a long way for fencing. So originally, people talked about the wastewater plant, but as we've sort of dealt with a couple other things, like with this baseball field, remember that there's no fences anywhere. And so you can't, like, legally change the use of land and/or add any fences over by the sewer plant. So we really can't have the dog park over there. So that kind of led me to think, where are other options? One would be the west end of the Oak Hill Park that we've never been doing, but there's so many trees over there that it isn't going to be easy to put a fence in. And so we also talked about maybe having it up near that well site, just, you know, like, because you also have to think about parking. So even if Oak Hill was great, like, to get the fence isn't a huge amount of money, but now is everybody just going to park in front of houses on Mulberry to, like, get in there? And that's not ideal. Whereas you could do a little parking lot that kind of correlates with the well house. So we would keep it away from the house side, because if you remember, there's industrial to the south, it would be, and to the west. And then you'd have the well house, and then the, there's like a detention basin, you know, where Mulberry curves. And then you kind of go to the northwest. Mike has a detention pond, so it's kind of a good buffer between everybody. Mike liked the idea as well, that maybe even if he couldn't sell those first two lots right behind there, maybe that could be like some sort of parking or something. So just so everybody knows, we're kind of trying to figure out, but we have restrictions for various reasons on different sites. The other thing that we're going to talk about is there's a contest for the state of Iowa called Iowa Unite, and there's a video contest where you can make a 1-minute video of your community. So I'm kind of talking to Haley over at the chamber and Dan Wendler that's on the board, like figuring out some way of like video, drone, and you have a month to do this. It's due like June 23rd. If you submit it, and then there's a vote for like 3 days, if your video gets at least 500 votes in our size community, like 500 likes, which I feel like just between our worlds, we can get that many, then you get carried into the next part of the contest where they give you some sort of assignment, top secret assignment that you find out and have like 4 days to do it for promotion. And then if you win, you get some person that I don't know who it was, but a famous artist in the state of Iowa to come and do a cool mural on one of the sides of your buildings. So not only is it like a good way to make a little promotional video, kind of get people excited, the theme of it is how do you promote your small businesses? So we're kind of thinking about like what could we do downtown? You know, like maybe bringing people outside, like cheering in different sections. Like we wake up during the sunrise and go to the coffee shops, and sunset we're at the bars, I don't know. And shopping in between, something kind of cool.
Ryan
So.
Knuth and Eric Knuth are both really proficient with their drones. Just an idea to someone to reach
Yeah.
out to for drone
Like
footage.
this, who did it, I think, for the Hometown Days Parade, right? Molly and,
I think probably
Yeah.
Molly and Ryan.
yeah.
And Ryan does it a lot at the Dyersville downtown market stuff.
Okay. Yeah, we thought about maybe some videos that are already clipped, and then maybe trying to get like, how we have that Friday night event downtown in June. So just different things. So we're talking about that, but I think it'd be fun. It's just getting the video put together. So I have that. I told you about the garage going up for sale. And then we're looking around town at some faded signs. If you see any that are, they're like on the east end when you're coming into town,
There's a few out
pedestrian
there.
sign that's terrible. You can hardly see it. So the guys are kind of evaluating with the chief where we have signs like that. Some will just come down if they're not necessary, and then others, we've ordered a few, so If you see any, let me know. That's all I have.
Thank you. Public comment, you have a limit of 3 minutes per person and only items that are on tonight's agenda. Seeing none, I need a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. You beat me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good. Thank you.
Done, people. Not even gonna be late for softball.
Uh-oh.
That was good.
Not gonna be, did you say 7:30?
7:30. I said not gonna be late.
Quick go. Yeah. I'm just saying, like,
Hey,
I'll walk
Bugaboo.
up or whatever.
Ready to
Feel
go?
bad.
That was the only one, though, right? That one?
Yep,
Okay, just making sure. I'm like, I thought I heard that. So then I'm like, I'm just gonna ask right now. Before I forget to ask. Thank you.
You want to talk about it?
You were very patient. Good job.
Should we go to play softball game?
I have to turn off the camera, so.